A toxic friendship can drag anyone down, and it was the same for the Queen of France. Today, we witness the rise of a duchess known for her beauty, her manipulation of the throne, and how her friendship came with a deadly price. Growing up in a large family of sisters, perhaps deep down, Marie Antoinette was searching for that familiar sisterly bond. But where the Queen saw love and sisterhood, people around her may have seen her as an opportunity to gain wealth and power. Let's travel back to the 18th century France to see how her life became fatally intertwined with the Queen's. Yolande Martine Gabrielle de Polastron, or as she was generally known, Gabrielle, was once Marie Antoinette's best friend. She was born in Paris on September 8, 1749. Though noble by birth, her family was deeply in debt. At 16, Gabrielle was promised to the Count de Polignac and married just before her 18th birthday, becoming a countess. Her husband was from an old noble family, but just like hers, they did not have much money. Marie Antoinette and Gabrielle first met in the Hall of Mirrors at the Palace of Versailles. She was introduced to the young queen in 1775. At that time, Marie Antoinette was 19 and Gabrielle was 26. Gabrielle was famous for her angelic beauty, with dark chestnut hair, porcelain skin, and large, deep blue eyes that seemed to hold a violet hue. She instantly charmed the queen. When Marie Antoinette invited Gabrielle to live at Versailles permanently, she initially refused, saying that she just couldn't afford it. Instead, she often needed to go back to the French countryside to minimize the expense so she could visit Versailles sometimes. One day, she even wrote a letter to the Queen saying she had to sadly leave the court forever because she simply couldn't afford to keep visiting Versailles. According to the Queen's first chambermaid, Madame Campan, this was nothing but a strategic game. That letter was designed to stimulate the attachment of the young and sensitive Queen, and that plan worked perfectly. Marie Antoinette immediately arranged a high-paying position for Gabrielle's husband and settled their family's debts. They then moved into the Palace of Versailles, settling in an apartment very close to the Queen's own bedchamber. As mentioned in my last video, the Queen turned her private chateau, the Petit Trianon, into a sanctuary away from the court. She favoured Gabrielle so much that she practically handed her the keys to this exclusive world. Gabrielle became the ultimate gatekeeper. No one could enter the inner circle without her approval. This isolated the Queen from the rest of the court. Both the nobles and the common people came to despise the Polignac family. They were getting rich simply because the Queen liked Gabrielle. The Austrian ambassador even wrote to Marie Antoinette's mother, Empress Maria Theresa, saying, "It is almost unexampled that in so short a time the royal favour should have brought such overwhelming advantages to a family." Marie Antoinette even gave a massive dowry for Gabrielle's daughter when she married at only 12. This amount could buy 6 to 8 luxury apartments in the absolute heart of Paris today. Plus, Gabrielle's father was appointed ambassador to Switzerland. She always acted as if she had no ambition, yet she happily accepted every single favour. In 1780, when Gabrielle was 31, the Queen made her husband a duke, making her a duchess. That same year, Gabrielle gave birth to a son, Jules. However, whispers spread that the true father was actually her lover, the Comte de Vaudreuil. So who was this lover? The Comte de Vaudreuil, captain of the Royal Guard, was 9 years older than Gabrielle. What's interesting is that Marie Antoinette couldn't stand him. She found him rude. He even broke one of the Queen's billiard cues in a fit of rage just because he was losing the game. But Gabrielle was smart. Whenever she sensed the Queen was truly losing patience, she knew exactly when to distance herself from Vaudreuil just to keep the Queen happy. At the age of 33, Gabrielle was made the Governess of the Children of France. This position was in charge of the royal children's education and was usually held by someone from the highest-ranking nobility. The previous governess, a princess, had to resign after her husband's bankruptcy scandal. Appointing Gabrielle to this post caused outrage at court. People felt she was completely unqualified for such an important job. As the new governess, Gabrielle was given a 13-room apartment in the Palace of Versailles. To put that in perspective, royal governesses usually only got 4 or 5 rooms. A 13-room apartment just shows how much the Queen favoured her. All of these obvious favours led to rumours that Gabrielle was the Queen's lesbian lover. At a time when people were strongly against homosexuality, this badly damaged the monarchy's image. Did Marie Antoinette ever realise the Polignac family was using her? The answer is yes. According to Madame Campagne's memoirs, Marie did complain to her about it, but she was so lonely that she simply couldn't let Gabrielle go. After the diamond necklace affair, which we explained in the last video, the Queen had to cut spending to save her reputation. This meant the Polignacs lost a lot of funding, and as you can imagine, they were not happy about this. To silently protest that she felt she had fallen out of favour, she took a temporary trip to England. There, she visited her friend, the famous Georgiana Cavendish, the Duchess of Devonshire. But her story is for another time. Let's get back to Gabrielle. So did this trip make the Queen miss her? Absolutely. In fact, when Gabrielle threatened to leave, Marie Antoinette cried and begged her to stay. The Polignac family later returned to the court, and Gabrielle resumed her position as the Queen's absolute favourite. To the public, Gabrielle became the symbol of everything wrong with the monarchy. The hatred was so intense that by September 1788, angry crowds were burning effigies of her in the streets. When French finances were in chaos, Jacques Necker was brought in as the finance minister to save the country. Necker was popular with the common people. However, Gabrielle and the king's brother, the Comte d'Artois, hated his reforms. They successfully persuaded Marie Antoinette and Louis XVI to dismiss him on July 11, 1789, arguing that Necker was prioritising the common people over the nobility. This was a terrible idea. Just 3 days after Necker was dismissed, the people of Paris stormed the Bastille to seize weapons. They believed the dismissal meant the king had turned against them, so the French Revolution began. At the very start of it, the Polignac family left France. Marie Antoinette had urged Gabrielle to flee, knowing she was a prime target. The Queen even gave her a sum equivalent to 40 years of an average worker's wages. They departed at midnight. For this terrifying journey, the almost 40-year-old Duchess was disguised as a humble chambermaid. At one point, a postilion actually recognised them, but he didn't turn them in. To thank him, they gave him a handful of gold. They travelled through Switzerland, Turin, Rome and Venice, before finally settling in Vienna, where they were welcomed by Marie's family. Though she escaped the guillotine, her life didn't last long. In late 1793, she passed away, within just 2 months of the Queen's execution. She left this world at only 44 years old. While it was likely cancer, her family announced that she had died from heartbreak and suffering. We may never know if she truly saw Marie Antoinette as a friend or if she was just using her. But it seems the news of Marie's death delivered the final blow. History remembers her for her beauty, but also as the toxic friend who took everything the monarchy could give and fueled the anger that destroyed it. Every name in a history book has a complex human life waiting to be seen. There are countless fascinating stories waiting for us to dive into. To join the next one, make sure to like and subscribe.